Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher. Time to do a little catch up and some preparations as WoD is about to come out. That means several things. Now, we have a themed transmog competition this Saturday on the 11th. That is a themed transmog competition. It's our last web show before Warlords of Draenor comes out, and that is because we're going to BlizzCon. We're going to be away for 2 weeks. So, that means there will be a drop in content just before WoD comes out. It's a bit of a bummer, but I didn't exactly expect Blizzard to release WoD the day I return, actually. The night I return from BlizzCon, I will sleep, and then WoD comes out that evening. So, thanks for that, Blizz. But that's okay. So, we have a themed transport competition this weekend. It's been announced for about a month. We've had some really good entries. A lot of pirate themes and some Indiana Jones stuff that I'm seeing here. It's obviously making your character look like something from a movie or a manga or whatever the hell you want it to be from a game. And you can wear whatever you want. So if you want to get your entries in before then, go ahead. Do so now. It's on the preachgaming.com website. The link is down below. You can wear whatever the hell you want. There's no rules or regs on 3 pieces or anything like that. You just got to look like whatever you want to do. As this mop comes to a close, I'm going to do a quick series on preparations for WoD. Now, in fact, preparation is actually a little bit different this time round. So it's a shorter series than what we did for Mists of Pandaria, which was kind of a long-running series. We don't need to do that much for WoD, as a lot of the restrictions on things like professions and races have actually been removed. So there isn't that much to really worry about in terms of going into WoD. I want to talk about drama time a little bit. Obviously, the last show I actually thought was very funny and very entertaining, but it obviously had a couple of drawbacks. One is that the story, the finale story, which was the big one, I had to actually cut short. Now, there was a reason for that. When it comes to drama time, I enjoy it as much as you guys do. As much as I'm producing it, I like actually learning the story as I go along. So the way I usually do drama time, unless it's a very short story, is I read about 50% of the story and see if there's something that we can work with. Is this something I could turn into a show? Is this something I could make entertaining out of this? Obviously, some drama stories vary in terms of how much entertainment's actually within the story and how much I can add to it. So, in doing so, I do run the risk, and it's happened on a couple of times, of one, the conclusion could be very poor. And ultimately, when we get there, I'm thinking in my mind, it's like, this started so well and then it ended quite badly. Or ultimately, like what happened this time, is the conclusion wasn't poor, but it was actually something I was very uncomfortable reading. And even Andy, Mr. Ghosty himself, who likes pushing the limits even a little bit further, agree with me, is that he just did not feel comfortable reading the ending to the story. And as such, we decided not to do it. Now, an unfinished story is, what does this say in, I can't remember the movie, never mind. Cloud Atlas, an unfinished story is like an unfinished love affair. You can't let it go in your back of your mind without having the conclusion, which obviously left many of you really pissed off, including myself. I never want to do that. As somebody who enjoys stories, that's the whole point of drama time. I love stories. It's very, very irritating. So in order to solve that, there is really only one way, and that is just that I have to read the 100% of the story and be fully prepared for it. Now, in some ways, that will actually make the show better for you guys, as I can have more things going on in my head as to where I'm going to take the story and pre-plan things and maybe come up with some ideas before we actually get to that section of the story. And therefore, in terms of you guys, it'll probably make the story a little bit better. What we will lose is a little bit of the surprise factor. I'm never into feigning surprise. I think it comes across really poorly if you're like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. I think you guys would pick up on that and be like, yeah, you just look like a dick. And I fully agree. I'm not an actor, so feigning surprise is not one of my strongest suits. So therefore, I'm okay with it. I think that's just the best way to go with the drama time story, and make sure that we don't have that horrible situation again, which just leaves many of you with a sour taste in your mouth. And I fully understand where that came from. I can only apologize. That was the reason behind it, and it's fixable. Okay, it's fixable. That's the way we'll go. On the topic of drama time, I do feel that it's got a little bit away from its original intention. The purpose of drama time was following on from when I did the story times, which involved, during a period of time, one where I was completely hormone-ridden. I was playing a priest during vanilla, which meant I had a lot of sway with guilds, and I totally used that to my advantage in really bad ways. And looking back on it, it was a horrible thing to do. So during the early days, I read those stories out, not purely to sort of absolve myself, but in fact to show you that this goes on, because it goes on to this day, and to be aware of those people. So the idea of Drama Time was, hey, this is stuff that's funny, and we can look back on and laugh, and we can say, God, I can't believe I did that, or I can't believe I bumped into this person, but also to have this kind of message that this goes on, and these are the signs to watch out for. So although we have a lot of jokey, it's more of a characterization than anything I produce, because obviously the design of Drama Time is purely for entertainment purposes. It's also, in the back of your mind, is that these things do happen. People are actively screwing you over. These are the signs to look out for. Some guilds are great, some are bad. There are things to watch out for. As much as there have been many, many successful sort of relationship guilds with man and wife in charge, there have been countless examples of those guilds being very successful. There are far more where that causes great deals of problems, and it's something you should be watching out for. So we obviously stereotype that in the entertainment side of being, God, boyfriend, girlfriend guilds, run for your life. In reality, there are plenty that do well, but obviously there's a lot more that you should be aware of and look out for. It's like saying the same thing as e-dating never works. I could tell you that in Drama Time, e-dating is something that we mock and we kind of laugh at, purely, again, for the entertainment purpose, but there are members of my own family who have e-dated and it's worked out quite well, and they're still together to this day. So there's always that to convey in mind. Having said that, more recently, there's been a hell of a surge of the more erotic stuff, the ERP stuff, something I remember touching on the ERP stuff about 6 months ago, probably, and at the time it was kind of new, fresh. It was something I'd never experienced, and it was something I imagine many of you have never experienced. In fact, stemming from the RP stuff, which many people don't get involved in, and it was an interesting insight into what the RPers get up to and how much fun those guys are having. And even if you're one of those people who can't get into roleplay, like myself, I can't get into it, and I wish I could. I've said on many occasions, those guys are having way more fun in the game than I have, in a completely different way. But it then stemmed onto the ERP stuff, and interestingly enough, you might actually believe from the face of it, especially if you're a fan of that stuff, is that ERP stuff and sex-related stuff actually is far more popular. Our viewing numbers actually don't reflect that at all. If I put a title on the Drama Time that seems to indicate some form of ERP, we actually get less viewers than the stuff that's more specifically WoW-related. So although there is a niche there, it certainly doesn't convey across the entire audience who is after more interesting WoW stuff with maybe even ninjaing and all that kind of crazy stuff that goes on. The ERP stuff actually not paying off too well. And more recently, it's actually become more and more, I guess perverted is the word, more expressive and more graphic. And therefore, I mean, even recently, Ghosty read one of the stories on his channel because I was like, I can't read this. It's just like a porn thing. I don't want my channel associated with that. It has become an increasing thing on my mind is that, this is getting a little bit too far. I do want to bring it back more towards the WoW stuff. I think that benefits the audience. I think it benefits the more stability of the channel. It definitely is more beneficial to the newcomers. One big issue Drama Time causes me is because it's for entertainment purposes. If you're a newcomer to the channel, a lot of people just maybe drop in on Twitch to the drama show because they see it so highly listed. And then they're like, who is this guy? And why is he making fun of the classic thing of the Swee guys? We had this huge issue for like 5 months. Most of you will know this is where we had one story where someone mocked a Swedish person. And then there was a running joke in the chat amongst the long-time viewers about Swedish people. And then instantly I was associated with actually being a hate monger towards Swedish people, which obviously made no sense at all in terms of people who knew the context. But can you blame people who drop in later for not understanding that context? Not really. No, you can't blame those guys who drop in. It's like, what is this channel where people are hating on Swedish people, for example? And so we need to just be more aware of that. I think me personally needs to be more aware of that. The voices and stuff I think actually works kind of well. It's very few people who actually get very offended by doing a Southern American accent that's completely over the top stereotypical. There's always going to be somebody who's pissed off by that, but there are certain things I'm not prepared to tolerate. I'm not prepared to really put up with people who look for a reason to get on my case about stuff, right? I'm not that interested in the opinion of every single person. It's impossible for me to, in any way, appease everybody, absolutely appease everybody and make everybody happy all the time. Otherwise, it would be generic water content, and we just don't do that. So that's the idea with Drama Time, going back a little bit on the format and bringing it back to a little bit to its roots. It's surprising to look back and see how much more popular it was on the YouTube side of things. It's more popular on the Twitch side of things when it's a little bit more raunchy. and people are involved in the chat. It's actually a very different experience. So in order to balance that, I think there's a place on the web show for the more raunchy stuff. And that also leads me to the idea of maybe not uploading the web show to YouTube. I haven't uploaded the last couple. Now, one of those reasons was that the actual VOD got flagged by the new audio system, and then for some reason I turned off my local recording, which meant I couldn't actually access my own VOD, despite the fact that we're using music we're perfectly allowed to do, and Twitch just hasn't unlocked it for whatever reason. I don't know, Twitch being Twitch, I guess. So I'm not sure if that actually would be a better idea, is that the web show actually stays as a live thing and the VOD is perfectly accessible. I can totally cut it down. But it often doesn't translate well to YouTube, who watch more of the in-depth serious stuff where we're talking about classes and gameplay and all that kind of stuff, and then transferring over to more personal opinions where people get really irate about personal opinions. Now, again, I don't let that bother me too much, but I have seen that in terms of very long content, which the web show is, it averages about 3 hours. Not a lot of people on YouTube are prepared to watch that. If they are prepared to watch 3 hours of content, they're probably going to be able to find the VOD on Twitch, especially if I link it. If I upload the drama time, maybe, the more raunchy ones, then I can certainly say there's the rest of the web show below that, or perhaps about a recap at the end of every 2 weeks, a recap of what we've been doing is another idea I've had, and discuss various ideas there. And then link all them down below. So say, here's where they are. You can go and see them there, but they're not appearing on YouTube. So it's an idea I'm having, but it's one of those where you guys can give some feedback on whether or not you prefer that. I kind of think that people would... I noticed that the VOD views on the web show is very, very high. Is very high. Much higher than other stuff where they know it will come down to YouTube anyway. So I think that's the way to go. Overall, the channel's doing fantastically well. We actually broke a view record last month with 3 million views. It's about 54 years of content was watched from my channel last month alone. I believe that makes us pretty much the biggest WoW watched channel, even with people with way more subscribers. I'm pretty sure we're at the top, which is just amazing. We don't have anywhere near as many subscribers, but what we do have is, and we've always had, is a community that is not so much very niche, but a little bit niche in terms of looking at in-depth stuff and being able to take criticism. As much as I see a lot of rage, those rage are always the vocal minority. If I look at videos which are very negative, I see obviously way more dislikes, but that way more dislikes is like 5. And the rest of the stuff is really balanced out. If I look at something which like Dispriest, which was a reasonably negative one, I see only 8 dislikes there, which is incredible as people understand that it's not me. And a lot of people get a little bit pissed off when it's a negative video, but they also understand that that's how it is. And that's not something to be getting all pissed off about. Even on the Hunter stuff, which was overall very negative, I'm seeing like 9 dislikes compared to hundreds and hundreds of likes. And that gives me an indication that people do understand what we're conveying here. And it's not a case of 2 thumbs up. I saw an awful tweet recently from Blizzard itself, actually. It was like, hey, everything super positive is what gets you more views. I actually believe the opposite. I think being honest gets you more views overall in the long run. You might get a short view where it's like, this is amazing, you should play this all the time. And that might get you a lot of short-looking views. But overall, you're not building a solid community there. And our community is pretty frigging good in terms of actually being able to take criticism. One of the most difficult things in WoW, as you guys will know, is taking criticism. And we're pretty good at it. Overall, we are pretty good at it. There's obviously a lot of vocal people, but they are so in the minority that it's absolutely fine. And I have no issue with that whatsoever. So overall, we're doing very, very well. And I want to thank you all for that, as always. It's a privilege to do this job. It's a privilege to be able to speak my mind and look at things objectively. I try my hardest to be objective when looking at a class. I obviously can't play every class as a main. That would be insane. But I do my absolute best to put in hours and hours of research to make sure what I'm talking about is as accurate as it possibly is. Even when we make little mistakes, you guys know that we tried our hardest not to make that happen. And that's very cool. So that's where we're at so far. We are going away in just under 2 weeks. I hope to see you at the web show for a big sign-off. Let me know what you think about the stuff we talked about today. Other than that, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you soon.